Produce more power banks. Insufficient power. Shutting systems down.
Hello everybody, this is Senti, and in today's episode I want to explain the power mechanic for Celestials. While this is another episode about Celestials, it should be interesting for everybody, since understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent's mechanics helps you to play around it and abuse its boundaries. Let's get started by taking care of the basics, and after that analyze some economics around power. When you start the game with Celestials, you'll notice two things. You have maximum supply by default, and there is this power bar which is integrated in the top bar. When you mouse over the power bar, it shows a tooltip. Power. Power enables the construction of structures and use of astral interventions. Astral interventions cost temporary power, which slowly regenerates. Power utilization, red, yellow, green, impacts construction, production, research and structure weapon speed, as well as structure health regeneration and unit energy regeneration within Cascade Field. So first of all, while we don't have to worry about supply at all when playing Celestials, we have to manage our power. In a very simplified way, we could say power is supply for buildings. Power further enables the use of astral interventions, the top bar abilities for Celestials. Generally speaking, Celestials are therefore restricted on buildings rather than on units. Let's see what this power bar is actually showing us and clarify some terminology. The big number in the middle of the power bar shows your unused power, color-coded in the color of the current power utilization. Unused power is your produced power minus your consumed power. The bar underneath shows your consumed power and unused power relative to your produced power. The bar is divided into three sections and has a marker that shows your currently consumed power relative to your produced power. The full bar represents your total produced power. The rightmost divider is representing the zero power point. If your consumed power mark is located there, you have basically consumed all produced power. The threshold between the green part and the yellow part is marking 20% of your produced power. We will come back to the power thresholds in a few. Note that the aforementioned thresholds won't move during the game. They always stay at the same place, while the marker moves accordingly. Before going any further, let's clarify terminology again. Produced power is the total power that is gained from various sources. It is represented by the full power bar. Consumed power is the total power that is used by various sources. Unused power is your produced power minus your consumed power. Depending on the ratio of produced and consumed power, there are various levels of power utilization. Power utilization depends on your power quotient, which is calculated by dividing your produced power by your consumed power, and which basically calculates how much power is overproduced. If power is overproduced by 25% or more, which means your power quotient is greater than or equal to 1.25, then you are in green power. This means that you can only use 80% of your produced power to stay in green power. If this is the case, can be seen in the power bar with the aforementioned 20% threshold. If power is overproduced but not by over 25%, so your power quotient is greater than or equal to 1 but less than 1.25, you are in yellow power. In this case, your consumed power marker is between 20% and 0% unused power as mentioned before. If power is underproduced, which means your power quotient is even lower than 1, then you are in red power. In this case, your marker is located in the rightmost section of the power bar. Unfortunately, the power bar doesn't show any numbers, not even when you're moving your mouse over the respective thresholds. While you can see your unused power from the big colored number and therefore know how much power you can consume before going in red power utilization, there's no place to read the exact numbers for produced power or the power number of the 20% mark. Unfortunately, the pattern of the power bar isn't helping here either, since it's just graphical and not changing with power numbers. Foremost, your current power utilization can be seen by the color-coded number of your unused power. It is also shown when you want to construct a building with the quick macro panel and see your cascade field, which is also color-coded at your respective power utilization. Note that constructing buildings with morph cores won't show the color-coded cascade fields. Further, if you're in yellow or red power, your screen is bordered in the respective color. And finally, you can see it in the foundation of your buildings, which has a shimmering matrix that is either green, yellow or red. Note that this is the only way your opponent can see your current power utilization. Let's now take a closer look on how power is consumed and produced. Power is primarily consumed by constructing structures. All structures beside power banks and arc ships have a power cost. Power consumed by structures is consumed as long as the building is alive. If the building is destroyed, the power is free again and brought back into your pool of unused power. Power can also be consumed by astral interventions, which are Celestial's topper abilities. They are handling power a bit different though. The surge ability is a boost to a building that can be switched on and off. It consumes 10 power when you surge a building and refunds the 10 power back when you unsurge it or the building is destroyed. The other astral interventions, beside Stormgate, which only has a building consumption of 8 power, consume temporary power. They consume between 10 and 30 power, but as long as any temporary power is consumed, you regenerate it slowly at a rate of 10 power per minute. Only this temporary power can be regenerated though. Mind that the regeneration of 10 power per minute is not per ability. So if you used different astral interventions, the regeneration rate still stays at 10 power per minute, and it will take a long time until all the temporarily consumed power is regenerated again. Power is produced by power banks and arc ships. Power banks produce 20 power, while arc ships produce 30 power. The latter is also the reason why you start with 22 unused power. Your initial arc ship produces 30 power, while your array is consuming 8 of it. Power is also produced by regenerating temporary power, as mentioned before. If the unused power marker is separated like a bracket as seen here, it means that you've spent temporary power that is currently regenerating. The left bracket shows your unused power level once all temporary used power is regenerated again. The right bracket shows your currently unused power. As you can see, the bracket slowly closes while regenerating power. Let's now take a look at how different power utilization affects your economy and other aspects of the game. As you can see, different power utilization has impacts on various areas. They affect your economy by increasing or reducing production, construction and research speed. They affect the attack speed of your turrets and determine the health regeneration of structures. They determine unit health regeneration in cascade field. 2 things to note. First, if power benefits coincide with benefits of other sources, for example the 25% attack speed surge bonus of a strike node, those benefits are additive, which means a surge strike node in green power has 50% bonus attack speed. And second, the reduced build time when morphing morph cores into structures is always subtracted from the base yellow values before taking green or red power utilization into account. Let's now have a look at power economics and start with the amount of costs for power. As mentioned before, power banks grant 20 power for a cost of 125 luminite, while arc ships grant 30 power for 250 luminite. This results in a power cost of 6.25 luminite for power produced by power banks and 8.33 luminite per power for power produced by arc ships. To stay in green power, we have to overproduce power by 25%, which means that 20% of our power has to stay unused. This means power banks effectively only produce 16 power and arc ships effectively only produce 24 power, which leads to an effective power cost of 7.81 luminite per power for power produced by power banks and 10.42 luminite per power for power produced by arc ships. We should keep those numbers in our mind for later. Let's now have another look at temporary consumed power, which regenerates at a flat rate of 10 luminite per second. The regeneration often leads to a misconception that astral interventions are free. Let's take a look at the power cost of the astral interventions. Zenith Scan consumes 10 power, Sovereign's Watch is 15 power, Evolution Catalyst is 30 power, Purify is 30 power as well. This means you can basically scan for free every minute if you don't use any other topper ability. But even then you have to pay in advance for this power to not temporarily go into yellow or even red power. A more realistic scenario is though that you use other topper abilities as well and never regenerate all power back. So in my opinion there are 2 ways you could see the temporary power regeneration in a simplified way. Either you assume that scanning is free and everything else is not free, since it will never be fully regenerated over the game. While this might not be 100% true in all games, scanning as often as possible with need scan, which coincidentally recharges in 60 seconds, should theoretically be the most optimal play on a same level field, since getting information is crucial. Or you assume nothing is free, but you basically have a small passive luminite income due to the power regeneration. For this calculation we use the always staying green value of 7.81 luminite per power of the cheaper power banks, which results in a passive income of 10 times 7.81 luminite, which would be 78.1 luminite per minute. While the second alternative might be more precise, I prefer the first one for simplification and easy understanding. In either case, we can realize that the controversial topper abilities, which are Sovereign Swatch and Purify, are not free and you basically have to pay for their whole power cost. Let's calculate them using the always stay in green cost for power produced the cheaper way by power banks. Sovereign Swatch is 15 power, which would translate into 117.2 luminite. Evolution Catalyst is 30 power, which would translate into 234.4 luminite. Purify is 30 power as well, which would also translate into 234.4 luminite. This is really expensive and shows the trench of fake harassment against Celestials, which leads us to our second economical topic, the real cost of topper use in harassment damage. I actually wanted to do some more math at this point and calculate how different scenarios affected your economy, for example what it means economy-wise if your opponent forces you to Sovereign Watch and you drop into yellow or even red power. While this still slows down the production of buildings and combat units, the charge system introduced in 0.4.0 causes morph cores and prisms not being affected. So the impact of harassment is less severe now. While it still slows down the construction of buildings, your second array is usually done around 1 minute 40 seconds latest before any real threat will knock on your door and therefore won't be affected from power drop anymore. I personally don't like this change, since it waters down some of Celestial's core mechanics. The same complaint can be heard from Vanguard players who cannot boost their servo charges with solar habitats. I kind of hope that this will be changed, so we might need to do an update on this section at some point. But right now we can note that harassment damage is currently mostly reflected in the respective luminite costs of the topper abilities, which is 117.2 per Sovereign Swatch as mentioned above, and the slower army production, which is of course not to be underestimated. There's another topic related to power economics, namely if it's worth to use topper abilities to creep. This means on the one hand the not uncommon health camp creeping with Sovereign Swatch, and on the other hand the general use of Evolution Catalyst. I want to keep this topic for another episode though, and keep this episode more about the basics of power. So thank you very much for watching, I hope you liked this. As always, all feedback is really appreciated. Stay tuned.